I absolutely had no plan for what to talk about today. I didn't even come up with something over the weekend or anything like that. What I ended up doing over the weekend was one, going to a LAN party where we played Deep Deep Rock, Deep Rock Galactic. Is that what it's called? One of those games. Played that game for 13 hours, and because of drinking and all this other stuff, Mountain Dew, caffeine, didn't end up leaving till I think it was 4 a.m. Got back around 4:30. Then fell asleep. I don't know what time, but when I woke up, I had a massive headache, so that was annoying. And then so I was in bed most of yesterday, which would have been Sunday, and I don't remember at what point I did this. So I downloaded Subway Surfers, and then I was playing Subway Surfers for until I got to the 30 level multiplier. If you're familiar with Subway Surfers, the way it works is that you have like three challenges. You do the three challenges, it adds to your multiplier, and then that happens. You can do that 30 times till you get the max multiple you can have is 30. And then for a little bit, I tried to do some of the other challenges. Then I just was like, nope, not gonna do that. But I wasn't just playing Subway Surfers. I was listening to podcasts while playing Subway Surfers. And would I say that's a productive day? No. And I'm trying to think of, I don't even remember the exact contents of the podcast I watched because it was all over the place, just looking for something to fill in the gap of time. Because while I had the headache, I was like, oh, well, I can't do anything with the headache. So I like listen to a thing and then try to like go to bed, nap a little bit, drink water, and all that. But what I do remember was when I was done with Subway Surfers and I switched to Adventure Capitalist, which is this terrible like passive game. It's like Cookie Clicker where your number just goes up, you upgrade a bunch of things until the number goes up, your prestige, it gives you a higher percentage and all that sort of thing. And again, proper waste of time. So I deleted it finally today because again, wasting too much time on it. And I think that in general, yeah, as a general statement, I would say that listening to podcasts and stuff while doing that, I didn't retain it as well, clearly. It's hard to tell how much of it was like hangover and how much of it was just using the phone too much. But definitely deleted that because I kept going back to the thing. Oh my, it's amazing how much these stupid phone games kind of hijack your brain. Like, I think the best for me is 2048, where 2048 doesn't take too much mental effort at all. Doesn't really suck me in, which is surprising because I think there's more effort to doing well in 2048 than these passive uh, cookie clicker type games. Because I think that I'd be able to like listen more, but honest to God, clicking and seeing the number go up and stuff is distracting enough that I can't fully listen to the things that I'm listening to, which is kind of odd. So 2048 is what I got to stick with. Subway Surfers wasn't bad. It's just that once you get to the point that you have no more things to do because it's just like collecting coins and then buying things, it's just not you're not really working towards anything that much. The gameplay loop doesn't change at all except for like going further trying to get a high score. I guess 2048 is like that too, but I don't know. There's something about 2048 that I can do more of it, but not Subway Surfers. Anyway, this rant is going all over the place because I'm just talking about random things that happened this weekend while I wasn't making ideas for this podcast. Because, um, but one thing that I did do that I don't know how productive I'd call it, but I was watching some American history lectures. There's this great professor, this Yale professor, who did this lecture series on the history of the American Revolution. So, how colonies become a nation and then into the war period, that sort of stuff. I got about halfway through. I'll finish it some other time because I have to prepare for an interview tomorrow, so I can't really listen to more lectures on American Revolution, but if you find Yale Courses, I think is what the YouTube channel is called. I totally forget what the professor's name is, but she does a great job of like explaining what's happening at various points in time. And the thing about it is that, my God, that's an interesting time in history. There's so many impressive young men with this classical education on everything. When she's reading quotes from their writings and stuff, they write so eloquently and all this other stuff. And you're just like, my God, how how do you tap into that? How do you tap into that sort of greatness, and greatness with a level of arrogance too? Because there's a bunch of she's constantly quoting John Adams, and John Adams really cares about the greatness of himself, and talking about how oh, this isn't, I think it was a quote something along the lines of how everything's going to be remembered not as it was, but more as like this mythology around it. And it would be like Ben Franklin and George Washington. And he was kind of upset about the fact that he thought he would be forgotten when someone's reading this many hundreds of years later or something like that. Good on you, John. You survived in the memory of many. Or at least the academics. I don't know how many like laymen would know who John Adams is other than the freaking beer Samuel Adams. I think, whatever. But so that that sort of thing really gets to me a lot when you're listening or hearing about great men of the past, and you look at yourself and you're like, man, I'm a 23-year-old. Have I done anything nearly as great as them? Not really. Am I as well learned as them? I don't know. Like, these creatures of the Enlightenment, they just seem so much more. And how much of that is the grandiosity that we put on this history and the mythology around it, and how much of it is just a truism? Um, like, I just, yeah, I don't have a good sense of that. One of the things that I really like about this podcast ecosystem, and all the people that get interviewed, is that you see experts in their field, supposedly really really accomplished people getting interviewed and all that sort of thing. And they're usually like people late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like so many wide swaths across the age spectrum. And when they're getting interviewed and stuff, you really get a good sense that, oh my God, these are actually people. Like they have a life, they have hobbies, they get, there's more. They're not necessarily, or at least just from like a video evidence of them, not necessarily gods among men. Like, they're still comprehensible enough and all that sort of thing. Unless I'm listening to Stephen Wolfram, he'll talk about something and I'll be like, oh my God, my brain's hurting. So I don't know. There are some people that on the technical level are definitely more out there, harder to understand. But yeah, when you see that and you realize the length of time that it took for them to get there, it's so uncommon today to see, or maybe it was always uncommon, but the sense that I got from the founding fathers is that there's so many young people that are of great note in their like 20s and stuff. And not all, I guess not all of the founding fathers were in their 20s, um but you don't see too much of that when you're looking at the great experts, great accomplished people of current time. It's usually people 30 and above that I tend to see, at least on the various podcast circuits that I look at. And the people that are accomplished that are young, again, it's that they had the reps in early. So it constantly makes me think of like, what the fuck were we doing in school all those years? Like, what are we doing that's less rigorous than what they did in their time? Now, admittedly, maybe it wasn't equally distributed, the education, and the education's still not equally distributed, but better distributed than it was back then, or at least everyone supposedly gets an education now. But I don't know. It's so interesting. I remember long time ago, I think it was my second year in college, I was listening to the autobiography of Ben Franklin, and this man, very accomplished. He was making a raft when he was a kid with his friends, and he had a group of friends that he'd like constantly be in a writing group with, and they'd share each other's essays amongst each other and all that sort of thing. So they're getting these reps in at such an early time. So I'm just like, where was that when I was 10 years ago and all that sort of thing? Or am I just not the person who's self-motivated enough to do the reps at that time? Now, yeah, like a kid doing that, maybe it's harder to get that sort of motivation. Or maybe the school system drills it out of you because you're just like, oh, that's more homework. I don't want to do more homework. So it's just like, oh no. Uh, and then you see all these people that again come to prominence by the time they're in their 30s because during their 20s they spent all the time getting the reps in. Like even someone like Mr. Beast, who I believe is 25. Let me look this up. Mr. Beast. Is he 25 now? 19. He's 26 now. But yeah, he was in his early 20s when his YouTube stuff was taking off, but he's been doing the YouTube thing for 10 years. So you look at a lot of these YouTubers that do come to fame at young ages. MKBHD was also like this, where it was like his voice hadn't even dropped yet if you look at his first video, and then he's just making the videos, and then all of a sudden he's 30 now and very well accomplished. So you're just like, man, the reps. I don't know. Do you have to be that well accomplished? Does it? How important is that to me? How important is that to me? And how much of it is just the status game of it, where you're like, you look at those people and you're like, man, those people are great, I want to be great, but you don't actually have an intention of like, what thing do you want to be great at is always the question. Like, I work in computers right now, and it is cool to me to know that you're contributing to making computers better every day. But there's also a side of me that looks around me and I'm like, there are definitely people that are working harder at this than I am. And I'm like, do I need to work harder? There's so many competing. I think I talked about this in the planning thing too. There's just so many competing interests for what you want to work on. And it's like, okay, you can't work equally hard on all of these different things. So, I'm shaking the thing. I have my leg up on the table. Um, but yeah, I don't. This is the problem with rambles like this, where it's just stream of conscious. You just fall into that rut again of like, can I be the person that does that? I think I'm gonna circle back on that question every time, every single time. I was watching this YouTube video yesterday. I think it was Osmond Gold reacting to some streamer dude talking about this, but the advice was pretty salient when it came to being a streamer, or being a I'd say being a streamer in particular, because the guy who was in the video was talking about, can you be entertaining every 10 seconds? And it's like back to that maintaining the attention graph of things. Are you someone that is interesting enough, entertaining enough, that you can keep people's engagement for that amount of time? And you notice that in the podcast world a lot, where it's like, yeah, they're engaging for basically every minute of that podcast. And I don't know how the people being interviewed get so much practice speaking, so much practice being good enough at speaking, or whether the interviewer just draws it out of them. The interviewer like is doing way more than you think that they're doing to be able to draw out the entertainment from the guest. So it's really fascinating art when you break it down. I think a lot of people don't like to talk about the shop of like what it takes to make these things work. But I find it fascinating to think about. And I don't think I'm at that stage yet where you can be entertaining for every minute, especially when it's a solo thing where you're just trying. Oh my God. I'm treading on old ground again. I talked about this in another podcast where when you're a solo podcast, I think this was in the to edit or not to edit of like the solo podcasting being like, how can you stay entertaining the whole entire time? Something that Osmond Gold mentioned in that video where the other streamer is talking about what it takes to be a streamer, and the being entertaining every 10 seconds was that he mentioned, I think he mentioned doing this where he'd record himself even before becoming a streamer a lot of times. I think maybe it was that the YouTube channel came before his Twitch. I didn't actually check to verify that. But yeah, I was like, can you record yourself and rant for like 2 hours and still have something to talk about every single moment in that? And it makes you wonder whether you should do your reps in public or not, when it comes to producing your content. One thing that's interesting about the YouTube space is that because you do have the ability to edit, then you can be a perfectionist about it, and you can do like, okay, this is my perfect variant as far as I can do with the skills that I have currently. And then every single new video is a new attempt at doing a better job than you did last time. Whereas with the streaming stuff, it's the same thing of getting the reps in, but it's also, I don't know. There's certain things that are also just inherent to your personality, and some people might have a personality that's more entertaining than others. And it's a question of like, okay, do you just become an actor on a stage when you're a Twitch streamer, and how much the question is how much deviation can you have from certain archetypes when you're doing that sort of entertainment? Because one of the things is that for actual actors in like a movie, you have, I would say, a wide variety of characters and casts that you can choose from. So it's a question of, okay, how much does that streamer's personality fit into a casting type where they can just be an amped version of whatever their essence are, and they don't feel like they're compromising too much on that? And how much is it just like, okay, if you have a personality that's like this, you will never be an entertainer. You just cannot fit the entertainment mold if you are this type of person. And I wonder if that's the case. With division of labor, it's not everyone has to be an entertainer. That's true. But the thing that I think about when it comes to that is that I've always said that there are two things you have to do to be successful in life. And it was, one, get good at something. It could be literally anything, just get good at something. And then the second thing was learn marketing. And I think the learn marketing part might be more important than the be good at something, because you think about this with game streaming, where it's not necessarily the best players of the game that are the most popular streamers. It's the people that are most entertaining at the game that they're playing. And the game is just background for whatever their entertaining personality is. It's just the set piece for it. And you see this happen with some of the bigger Twitch streamers where they've, because Twitch isn't as gaming focused anymore, you've seen a lot of people transition from gaming into the just chatting, just talking sort of thing, and more like IRL real space things. So that really tells you that it is more of the personality that people are coming from than the game is, the game that they're playing. Now there are some streamers that obviously stick their niche into whatever the game is, but I think a lot of it is just the marketing of it. But you have to be decently okay at the thing that you're doing. I don't know. I think about reality TV and I'm like, okay, those people aren't necessarily good at many things other than being attractive, which I don't think there's the skill in being attractive is marginal at best because it's whatever genetics you have, and then you amplify that with makeup, etc., hairstyles, other things. So yeah, maybe the marketing takes more of the cake. No, there still has to be something there. It's just like whenever you make a product like the iPhone, great piece of technology, but the marketing is probably what leads it to being one of the top market cap companies. So great engineering plus great marketing. So you have to have something there. You have to have some meat before you just become a marketer. Um, but yeah, that marketing component, it's kind of hard. Yeah, that's all I have to say. This has just been a big rant about various things. And don't have much more. I hope someone finds this useful. If they don't find it useful, then I guess I'm not doing good enough marketing. So, y'all have a wonderful day. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, dislike the video if you dislike it, and make sure to comment below because, yeah, commenting. Bye.